My name is Katelyn Brooks. I've been sober since December 21st of 2021. So I just got 3 years clean. Um, so I was born in Virginia, three older brothers. Um, we moved to Missouri. My biological dad was never in my life. Um, we moved to Missouri when my stepdad, who I will refer to as my dad, was running from a halfway house. I was about, I think, 8 years old. Um, Life was good. My parents were alcoholics. Um, they fought a lot. Um, and sometimes it would get so bad that my brothers would come wake me up. Um, I was my dad's weakness. My brother Ricky was my mom's. So when they got drunk and they were literally trying to kill each other, we just had to make our presence known and they would instantly stop. Sometimes that came with us staying up all night with our parents while they complained about the other until they passed out. We would still get up and go to school, do the same. That kind of made me and Ricky the protectors of the family. Uh, and we tried to live by that. I remember in second or third grade, I would fake ear infections. So my mom would give me a piece of Xanax because it was easier. My brother Ricky started smoking and stealing money and getting high. My parents found out. I was probably 10 years old at the time. My mom ended up whooping him too hard. He locked himself in his bedroom, jumped out the window. Well, when we realized he was gone, she called the cops. The cops said that he was there at the police station. So when we showed up, they arrested my mom for child abuse. My dad was still on the run, so he couldn't come get us. We were released with my aunt, who met my dad down the road. So we went with my dad, and that's where everything went wrong. So my mom got out of jail. Everything was cool for a few weeks, and then the cops showed up to get my dad. They arrested my mom and my dad. My mom sat in jail for 7 months for harboring a fugitive. My dad went back to Tennessee, and that's where everything went wrong. We were staying with my aunt while my parents were in jail. When my mom got out, due to the fact that Ricky was living with my aunt legally through the state, we couldn't stay there anymore. So we started just staying anywhere my mom could find a place for us to stay. At this point, my oldest brother, Aaron, was a senior in high school, about to go into the Marine Corps. So he stayed with his friends, and me and my brother Matt just went along with my mom wherever she could go. Um, Once Matt got old enough to get a job, my mom was working doubles, trying to get us on our feet. Matt got a job at Burger King and then was washing dishes at the restaurant my mom worked at. I was about 13. We were staying with my mom's brother, Kenny. He had a 5-year-old daughter named Gabby. So whenever my mom and Matt would be gone, Kenny would have his friends come over. And when he did, he would send us to separate rooms. He would send Gabby to his room and me to Gabby's room. And he always told me it was because we were too loud when we were in the room together. One day, Gabby cried to me and begged me to switch her rooms. I didn't think nothing of it, and I did. Well, my Uncle Kenny's bedroom door opened, it kind of freaked me out because whenever Kenny's friends would leave, he would just yell for us. A strange man came in the room. Everything after that was a blur. Um, I remember Kenny yelling for me, and when I didn't come out, he came in the room. I was in the corner. My pants had been ripped off. He told me that if I ever told anybody, he would tell them I begged for it, and he convinced me that I was a whore. So from that moment on, anytime that he would send us to separate rooms, naturally I would go to his room. I didn't want that happening to my 5-year-old cousin. I ended up finding out later on that it just ended up happening to both of us. I mean, I was trying to save her. Well, from that moment on, I started smoking, drinking. I felt like I couldn't trust anybody. I was convinced that nobody would believe me and nobody would help me, and my dad was gone. So, well, when I started working the steps through Celebrate Recovery, I was working on step 4. And because of everything that was happening at the time, I didn't process what else had happened. At that time, somebody that I loved and trusted more than anything in the world, we were young, uh, for whatever reason. So we did this thing where I would bend over and take 3 deep breaths, and as soon as I'd come up, he would choke me out. And it was a way to get high, to get away from the reality. And while I was working the steps, it came back to me. One of the times that I'd passed out, he sexually assaulted me also. And if you would have made me take a lie detector 3 hours after it happened, I could have passed it, because in my mind it never happened. It never happened. And again, I was 13 years old. I'm 32 now, and it just now came a reality to me because of the steps. Um, so moving on, I started getting high on my Adderall. I mean, I got high any way I could. My brother went to the Marine Corps. My other brother caught his first felony, so he's about to go to prison. I'm off the chain. My mom can't handle me anymore, so she sends me to Virginia with my grandpa. Great, that's my escape. So I thought. So when I get to Virginia, I ended up becoming the captain of the cheerleading squad. I'm riding in the rodeo. I mean, I'm living my best life, kind of. So at night in the showers, I ended up cutting myself. Even though to everybody else, I was the perfect little Southern belle, I was not okay. I was still smoking weed behind my grandpa's back. I was still smoking cigarettes. I was still drinking. And then my dad gets released from prison. Everything's gonna be cool now. You know, dad's home. I moved back to Missouri. Everything's cool at first. When I moved back to Missouri, my brother Ricky is facing 15 years in prison. My brother Aaron has already been discharged from the military. He's off doing his own thing. My brother Matt is in DYS. He tried to steal a car to come get me when my mom sent me off. So he's been locked up the whole time I've been gone. So I get home, Matt gets out, you know, everything's cool. Everything's cool. And then my mom and dad start fighting again, real bad. This is right before I turned 16. And my dad's my life. So my parents are fighting again. My dad moves out and moves into a hotel room. He bought me a car, but he was physically driving the car because he wrecked his. Um, I didn't exactly have my license yet because I wasn't 16, but I had my permit and I had a car. My brother ended up having twin daughters, and they were in foster care because we found out they weren't really his, and the mother left him in the hospital. So they were ended up being adopted out, but the adopted parents still let us have something to do with them. So my mom gets wasted drunk one night, night before we're supposed to go see them, and she comes home with some random guy, leaves with this guy, dressed completely inappropriate. So I'm already mad, you know, I'm a daddy's girl. She claims that she's going to my dad. So the next morning when my dad calls me, or my mom shows back up with the car. So obviously she went to my dad's. But my dad calls me while she's in the shower and was like, "What is your mom on? She showed up here an hour ago, tried to beat up the manager of the hotel, acting crazy, blase, blase, whatever. And all I'm thinking is she left the night before with this random guy claiming she was going to see my dad. And she didn't, obviously. So I'm mad. I'm mad. And my mom gets out of the shower. She's mad at my dad, which automatically makes her mad at me. She won't even let me drive my own car. She makes my brother drive my car to go see the girls because she's still drunk and can't drive. We're driving to go see them. They live, like 30 miles away. And she's just bad mouthing my dad. Just telling us how horrible he is. Tells me that I can't go with him alone anymore. Just stupid stuff, and they got together when I was 4 years old. So he's my dad. So I get mad and I call her a drunken whore. And she turns around and hits me. And closed fist punches me. And I just knew it was done from there. She goes to take her seatbelt off. I put my feet up to stop her from coming in the back seat, and I jump out the back seat. Needless to say, I end up in foster care. Whatever. So when I'm in foster care, the judge has ordered that I am not to associate with any of my family members. Lucky for me, my mom and dad weren't married. So by law, my dad wasn't a family member. So I was allowed to associate with him. He ends up getting a girlfriend. I have 2 cell phones, one the foster family knows about and one they don't. I'm now in contact with his biological son, who's 7 months younger than me. So that's the only people I can talk to is my dad and my stepbrother Dustin. And I talk to him all the time. And then out of the blue one night, my dad's drunk. We're on the phone, me, him, and Dustin. And his girlfriend comes in the background and yells at him and tells him, hey, look, it's either me or her. And my dad's like, I'm not even on the phone with Captola, who's my mom. And he said, yeah, but you're on the phone with her daughter. My dad says, I can't have anything to do with you, and hangs up on me and doesn't speak to me again. So we go through the notion of foster care. My mom gets me back the day that I move home. This is 9 months after my dad told me he can't have nothing to do with me. He comes home the same day I get out. He just shows up. I didn't see my mom for 3 days. First 3 days I was home, she was in a hotel room with my dad. I told my caseworker, I'll run away. I'll do whatever I have to. I don't want to be in the house with this man. There was no solid reason for me not to be in that house. So they legally emancipated me at 17. I met my biological dad in foster care, actually, in the courtroom. They said there was too many people, and they tried to kick my dad out, and my dad and his girlfriend at the time. They tried to kick him out, and I threw a fit because they had strangers in the room that I didn't know. So why couldn't my dad be in there? And that's when the judge was like, you don't know who that man is. I was told my dad blew himself up in a meth lab, and my biological dad blew himself up in a meth lab and died when I was 8. So that's all I knew. Well, the judge informed me, hey, look, that's your dad. And I'm like, no, it's not. That's my dad. So my biological dad and his wife at the time did leave the courtroom so that my dad and his girlfriend could stay in there. But that's how I met my biological dad, was in court. So the weekend before I turned 17, my mom, we wake up to somebody beating on the door. And at this time, I'm sleeping with my German Shepherd because my brother's friends are on some weird stuff. And I knew my German Shepherd would protect me. And so as soon as they start beating on the door, I'm thinking, it's one of my brother's friends. Well, my dog's not trying to attack the door. So I knew there was something going on. So I get up and open the door, and it's the cops. My mom had called her sister in Tennessee and told her that she was done with life and that she was sorry and that she just cut her wrist. Well, my aunt has no clue where we live at this point. She just knows the county we live in. So she calls the cops and tells them, hey, this is what's going on. I don't know where they live. I just know the county. The cops show up at the door just in time. My mom had slit her wrist. She's lucky to be alive. So not only did she slit her wrist, but she was drunk and on Xanax at the time. Um, she dripped her blood all over my dad and me while we were sleeping. And when the cops came in, she was on her bed and the whole bed was stained with blood. She's super lucky to be alive. So when they got her conscious, we were at the hospital and she told the cops that she didn't want me to go with my dad. So I was to go with my biological dad, and I didn't know the man, but I did what she wanted, even though I knew she was, not in her right mind. So I ended up going with my biological dad for the weekend, and then I went and see my mom again, and she was like, "No, go home with your dad. Don't go back with that man, whatever." Well, while I was with my biological dad, that's something I'd been missing my whole life. I'm about to turn 17. You know, um, as soon as I got there, he bought me a pack of cigarettes and handed me a bottle of vodka, and I'm like, "Yeah, this is the life I want." You know what I mean? So, the weekend of my 17th birthday, I convinced my mom to let me go back to my biological dad's house so I can hang out with his wife's granddaughter, who's older than me. I never went back to my parents' house. I went back with the cops to get my stuff, and I never went back to my parents' house. I moved in with my biological father. My parents told me I'm not going to graduate. I'm not going to amount to nothing. I graduated high school with a 3.9 GPA. I don't remember most of my high school days. I graduated as a heroin addict and an alcoholic, but I did graduate just to prove a point, just to prove my dad wrong. I graduated, and everything was cool. I found out I was pregnant with my son April 22nd of 2012. Um, so from that moment on, I had a reason to be strong and stay sober. My son was born on December 3rd, 6 pounds, 7 ounces, 21 inches long. Uh, and I mean, he was my reason. I was going to be okay because I had him. Um, his dad was abusive mentally and physically. But I stuck there. I didn't want my son raised without his dad like I was. So I just stuck through it as much as I could. Um, Everything was cool. I had my own place. I was going to college. I had a couple jobs. My best friend overdosed and died when my son was like 2 years old, and my brother was actively using. At this point, me and his dad weren't really together. So I agreed to move in with my brother and pay all the back rent. He's got 2 kids also. So I agreed to pay all the rent. My brother just stayed sober. So I move in with my brother. We have 3 kids in diapers. I drop out of college, get another job, support all of us. Everything's great. My baby daddy's grandma is the only grandma in the situation that can really do anything. So she is taking all 3 kids Thursday nights so we could play volleyball, and then Sunday nights because she's had my son on Sunday nights ever since he was 3 months old. So she's taking all 3 kids for us, and we're partying. It's me, my brother, and my best friend Charlie, and we don't have kids nights a week. We're partying, and the party's always ended the same. We would get drunk and we would beat up everybody at the party, but we weren't doing drugs. So to me, that was okay. Like, we're not getting high. It's fine. We can get drunk all we want to. We ended up losing the place. I take off with all 3 kids. I stopped drinking and whatnot, and I keep all 3 kids until the mother of my niece and nephew is okay to have her kids back. So she ends up taking her kids back. My baby daddy gets out of prison. Um, I let him move back in with me. Everything is cool at first. Um, I'm still drinking. I start drinking again when he gets out. We moved back to St. Clair, and everything gets really, really rough again. Really, really rough again. Um, Finally, so he wakes me up, not really wakes me up. He knocks me out while I'm sleeping. He hacked into a Facebook that I haven't been on since high school, and he sees some messages and he knocks me out while I'm asleep. So when I come out of being knocked out, I will not fight in front of my son. It's not a thing. I won't do it. I don't care the situation. So I instantly call my biological dad and I tell him I'm coming. So I go and get my kid, wake my kid up. I go to get our stuff, and his dad's not having it. So he already took my phone from me while I was sleeping. My son has a flip phone that has no SIM card or anything in it. So as soon as I hear him coming down the hallway, he's screaming he's going to kill me. I pick up the phone, I dial 911, and I throw it. That's my only hope. He tackles me onto the bed with a knife, and as he's holding me down, my son's hysterical, and he's telling my son the next time you're going to see your mom is going to be in a casket. My son's 3 years old at this time. He's got this knife to my throat. My son's kicking him, begging him to get off me. The phone dies within 7 seconds of 911 picking up the phone. But the way that I'm screaming, the 911 operator recognizes my voice from him acting out in the past, and they send the cops to my house. As he goes to cut my throat, the cops kick in the door. Needless to say, he tries to act like he wasn't doing anything, whatever. He gets arrested. Um, I was done after that. I was done. And that was hard. I did let him move back in with me. He was sleeping on a park bench, and my son cried to me about it. So I did let him move back into my spare bedroom. He ends up going back to prison. Everything's cool, you know. I'm working at it as a nurse at this point. I called my grandpa one day in September, and I'm just, I just, I don't even know why I randomly called him, but I called him and he's like, when are you going to come see me? I said, I'm going to come down um, for Thanksgiving. And my grandpa had stage 4 lung cancer for 13 years, and he never admitted to me that he was sick. Well, he told me, he said, I'm not going to be alive by Thanksgiving, and this is September. So I immediately get off the phone with him, and I call my best friend, and I'm crying, and I'm telling him what's going on, and I don't even have the money to go see my grandpa if I tried. You know what I mean? I'm a single mom trying to keep up with everything, and my friend was like, "Look, I have all this money for my daughter's senior trip." He said, "Take it." He said, "I'll rent you a car." He said, "Go see your grandpa." So I left my son with his grandma. Me and my mom went and seen my grandpa. Um, my grandpa begged me to stay uh, for another 14 days, even offered to pay me a couple $1,000s to stay, and I wouldn't do it. My grandpa went into a coma while I was there. On our way home, my best friend who paid for the trip ended up passing away in his sleep from MRSA. The day my grandpa wanted me to leave, my grandpa took his last breath. So that was hard. So I got caught up with, I started working at a bar. My friend introduced me to this guy. She had lupus, so she would get really, really sick. So this guy calls me and he's like, "Hey, meet me at Brittany's house. Her roommate said that she's having an episode and I'm scared. I haven't heard from her, whatever." So we meet up at the house. Brittany ends up back in the hospital. She almost died on us. So I take her kid. Well, she had his kid because he was homeless. So I take both the kids, move them in with me, and I realize I'm working as a nurse and bartending full time, and I now have 3 kids under the age of 5. I don't know how I'm doing this. So he agrees to move in with me also. He's keeping the kids while I'm at work. He was a dope dealer. I overlooked that just so the kids were taken care of while I was at work. He went out at night, did what he did, whatever. Brittany gets out of the hospital, and the next day he gets arrested. Well, his daughter's crying to me. It's right before Christmas. His daughter's crying to me. You know, I feel obligated to do something. He goes to jail on 3 KPSs and a $100,000 cash only bond. This is 16 days before Christmas. I had him out 9 days before Christmas, and it cost me a lot of money. A lot of money. I had to get a lawyer, I had to get the bond. It cost me a lot of money. So, he gets out, we ended up getting together. Um, Everything's cool. Um, I mean, he continues to do him, I continue to do me, and then it wasn't cool anymore. He was running off to some chick's house in the middle of the night while I was sleeping or whatever, so I broke up with him. He comes and wakes me up in the middle of the night, tells me that somebody stole the titles because we were selling cars out of my driveway. So somebody stole the title. My nephew stole the titles of all the cars, including my personal car. And he comes and wakes me up and tells me that this girl stole them because at the time we thought the girl stole them. And he's like, either you go with me or I'm handling it myself. Well, due to my past, I'm not okay with men putting their hands on women. So I get up, I grab my legal pistol, and we go. On the way back from getting the titles back, we stop at a friend's house, and a needle falls out of my ex's pocket, and I freak out. Take me home. I knew he was getting high, but I didn't know he was shooting up. Take me home. Don't ever talk to me again, whatever. On the way home, we get pulled over. He looks at me and he says, I'm going to jail. I said, okay. Well, the car we were in was his sister's because I refused to let him drive my car. And it was reported stolen as an insurance claim from the person she bought it from. So as soon as they arrest him, I take the needle and the scale and the gun that he had in his waistband and I hide it just in case. Well, the car ends up being reported stolen. We get all that cleared up, but by the time we get all that cleared up, the guy in the back seat had done told I already gave them my gun from the jump. It was legally mine. The guy in the back seat had told them about the needle and the gun. He had a gun that he just stole from the girl in his waistband. So he doesn't get caught. He tells on us. I tell him the needle was mine. Me and the ex both get charged. In my head, the needle's a paraphernalia charge. They're going to write me a ticket and I'm going to be released. My son was with his grandma. This was a Monday morning that this happened. So my son was with his grandma. So in my head, I'm going to get a ticket and I'm going to walk out of here. That's not what happened. Um, they hit me with a felony. 18 days later, I get a bond and my friends pay for it. I get out. The first thing I do is I call my son's grandma and I'm like, I'm out of jail. I called her while I was in there and told her what was going on. As soon as I got arrested, I'm like, look, it's going to be a paraphernalia charge. It's cool. I'll be out. I need you to pick him up from school. I get out 18 days later. She tells me that she went and got temporary custody of him. And this is in May. Told me she went and got temporary custody of him. That I wasn't allowed to see him until court. Court was at the end of September. When September came, I was a full-fledged needle junkie. And so I stayed in active addiction for a really long time. I abandoned my kid completely. I couldn't face seeing him and not being able to take him home with me. So I just gave up. I should have, just kept it together and went to court, but I didn't. I was just so lost. So fast forward, I get arrested in July of 2020. Um, I get sober while I'm in jail. I stay sober when I get out. Um, Come November, I see my dad at a trap house. We're drinking, whatever. My brother takes off in my car. He's got some things he needs to do, so I'm sitting there drinking with my dad. And my brother gets back, and I go to leave, and my dad asks me for the last bit of money and cigarettes that I have. And at this point, I'm mad. You know, I've hated my dad since I was 16, and we can't hang out without it being an argument. Never. And he asked me for it, and I lost it. You know, like, how dare you ask me for my last of my cigarettes? And I think I had like $5, and we get into a huge argument. And he tells me I'm not going to amount to nothing but being a needle junkie and a whore. And I throw the pack of cigarettes at him, and I tell him, why don't you do us all a favor and go kill yourself? 24 hours later, my dad was found 19 hours dead in the same place where I threw those cigarettes. I relapsed that night, standing outside the trap house while my dad's body still laid inside. And I went hard. I went hard. I ended up getting arrested not even 2 months later and going to prison. Well, while in prison, I still used. It was what it was. Um, Prison was comfortable, it was cool. It was what it was. I actually got to talk to my kid at this point, so that was good. Um, so I was with a guy. We were engaged when I went to prison. We went to prison together. He got out about 7 months later. Um, One day he just fell off, quit answering his phone, whatever. And then he just started talking to me, got out of the blue. On February 14th, he sent me an email, told me that he wanted nothing to do with me, that he'd been seeing some chick. I get in my feelings. I get in my feelings pretty bad. Start saving up my psych meds. Um, on February 29th, I took 14 days worth of psych meds. I was on Boost Bar twice a day, Zoloft. I was on clotidine, and I was on clotidine to the point to where they had to check my blood pressure because my blood pressure would drop so low. So I took all the clotidine, all of the Boost Bar, the trazodone, and the Zoloft. And I'd been going to church with my friends and praying with my friends just to pacify them. It wasn't anything that I actually believed in. I was so mad about my dad. I didn't even care. And then I took all those pills, and I'm like, hey, look, dude, if you're real, if you're what all these people are saying, you're going to prove yourself. The next day I woke up and I was cool. Didn't have to have my stomach pumped, anything. I was okay. And when I say I was okay, I mean I was okay. Everything from the breakup to my dad's death to me being molested, everything was just gone. I was truly okay. And I've never been okay since I can remember, but I was okay. So I run to my table and I open up the Bible, and as soon as I open the Bible, it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and not lean on your own understanding, and he will make your path straight. I have literally lived by that every day of my life since. I started going to church. I started doing Bible study. I mean, my whole life completely changed. My whole attitude changed. I ended up calling a sober living because I knew if I went home, I wasn't going to be okay. I ended up paying for sober living. I joined Kairos. That was probably the most amazing thing I've ever experienced in my life, was Kairos in prison. I mean, If I didn't have a Bible in my hand, it's because I was on my way to work and they wouldn't let me take it with me. I mean, I've lived so hard for the Lord since. Um, I mean, he completely changed my life. Completely changed my life. So I got out of prison, went to the faith-based program that I had already paid for. They said they didn't have a bed for me. So they sent my money to another place and it was a trap house, so I refused to stay. And I ended up having to go back home. And part of me was like, okay, I'm just gonna I'm stuck. I'm going right back to where I was. You know what I mean? And then I remembered that Bible verse. And I'm like, nah, I'm not giving up this easy. So I went to a sober living back home. Um, some things happened. Uh, I was scared to death I was going to go back out. So I moved to St. Louis to the recovery house. I had an incident happen where the church that I had previously went to before prison turned me down when I was trying to help my brother who was in jail get a Bible. So right then and there, I decided I will never go to church again. The people are fake. The only place that church is real is in prison. I'm still in my Bible every day. You know, I'm still praying every day. I just refuse to go to church. And then I'm sitting at a HA meeting. Actually, it was after the HA meeting. I get hit up by this random person on Facebook. I'm at work and he's like, hey, I think you're in my circle. I'm like, what circle? And he's like, oh, the recovery house. Da, 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 da. And I'm like, no, buddy, that's my circle. Like, I don't know who you are, but that's my circle. I've been in this program for like 7 months. Never heard of you. That's my circle, not yours. Newsflash. So we get to talking or whatnot. And I don't even know how it came up, but he challenged me to a game of spades. And in my head, I'm like, okay, I just did, 3.5 years in prison. Spades is nothing. I got this. Well, we ended up meeting up at the recovery house for one of the manager's birthdays. And I'm like, hey, what's up? Where's your cards? So we ended up playing spades. Long story short, I beat him. Know that. And um, he invites me to church the next day. And I'm like, I really don't want to go to church because of what happened. But at the same time, I kind of want to hang out with this guy. So I'm like, I'll go. So we went to Cultivate Church, and it completely changed my whole entire outlook on churches. Um, I mean, completely. Not only on churches. So on the way home, um, he was talking to the driver about God and just the passion in his eyes. It's the same passion that I have. I just wasn't so open with it, and I just knew from there it was done. He had me. So I still go to Cultivate Church. We got married February 22nd in the basement of the pastor's house. Um, we both live in recovery. My son is a major part of my life. I have lots of friends that have followed me into recovery. I've completed my steps. I'm a sponsor. Um, I'm getting ready to get my own place. Life is so good, and I owe every bit of it to God. If it wasn't for God, I would not be who I am today. I would not have what I have today. I wouldn't have the people I have today, and I wouldn't be okay today. And that's just the gist of it.